Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans, and we have another Edmonton Elks signing, as the Edmonton Elks have signed defensive lineman Noah Curtis to a one-year deal, signs through 2026. This is another 6'5" defensive lineman here, 302-pound man, went to Kaiser University, born in Rivera Beach, Florida. And he has the status of a national here. He's only 27 years old, so Elks sign him out onto another year. They got 18 games out of him in 2023. They got 23 defensive tackles from him there, 2 sacks in that season. His numbers going into the next year, they generally improve. He plays only 17 games, gets 2 less tackles, but again, he played one less game. With 21 defensive tackles, goes from 2 up to 6 sacks there. So good improvement for him there. Still not even 30 years old. Still doing some good stuff there. And all in all, he had a relatively decent season. This is a guy that through college had played a lot of time with FIU, the Panthers, from 2017 through 2020. In which his best season he had in 2018, he recorded 49 total tackles. That was 22 solo tackles, 27 kind of assisted tackles there. And here's this thing though, his call, and this is where I see why the Edmonton Elks went after this guy coming out of college. His stats there, his sacks that he got were pretty good. He had gotten just a couple sacks each year, but each one he was getting was an average of like 10 to 11 yards lost. So he was capturing guys deep behind the line of scrimmage, doing a lot of damage there. And again, he's a big boy. He's a big-sized defensive lineman. He's one of those guys that you want on your team in that regard. And so I think the Edmonton Elks, they're locking down a lot of this defensive line. Obviously, there's still questions. Guys like Jake Sresna still on the market. Well, I shouldn't say on the market, but haven't yet re-signed with potential of hitting free agency. What do you think of this move here? Keeping another big boy around for another year in Edmonton.
Let me look. So the good thing is they still have, I want to pull up their Edmonton Elks.
Because that's the thing with him being
their last depth chart, because I want to see where he sits.
Well, I will say, one of the things I did notice, I'm just looking at a depth chart here from one of our Discord things here. Just a random game, the week 9 depth chart versus the Ticats. He was a starter here, and this is one of the great advantages of a guy like Smith is because he is a nationalized player. He can essentially play as a Canadian despite not being born in Canada. And so because of that, when you have that Canadian ratio as part of the mix, because that's very much a factor in the CFL, you need to have a certain number of Canadian starters. If you can make a guy who is either a Canadian, like a national, born Canadian or a nationalized player, do well and succeed, then that kind of gives you a lot more flexibility on your roster. So again, with some of those decent stats that we saw that he had over in college, I think the Edmonton Elks hoping to transfer those really good college stats into some good CFL stats. We had seen some improvement. I think in general, they see him as just a big guy, potentially a big asset. If he gets that right coach behind him, they can make this guy work,
Outside of Colby Williams, who was another DB on their team, Jackson led the DBs in tackles.
We're not talking about Jackson. We're just talking about Noah Curtis right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, Jackson. We're going to be doing another video on Jackson right after this.
You're good. Because we've done so many.
You're all good.
So, I mean, you have Brink. So the only 2 defensive linemen that have not been signed that were with last year's team is Sresna and Barlow. So that makes you wonder is Curtis and Williams gonna join Smith and Brinkman as
Yeah.
starters, or is Noah Curtis gonna be like that backup national?
Well, I'm curious exactly what kind of advice he can get, because of course J.C. Sherritt, defensive coordinator here for the Edmonton Elks, and he in general, and so he's the defensive coordinator slash linebackers coach there. I'm looking here if they have like a defensive line coach. I don't see here. They have some defensive assistants and whatnot here.
Defense.
I don't see a coach here for the D line here on the Edmonton Elks website. I could be wrong, but the thing about J.C. Sherritt is J.C. Sherritt's going to be very, very useful in developing the linebackers of as a defensive coordinator, developing that linebacker group of the Edmonton Elks. I don't see him being as useful with the D line. Not that he's not going to be a good coach and be able to offer some valuable insight, but again, linebackers are more J.C. Sherritt's specialty. So I'm curious if, so like again, sometimes stuff like this, you just need kind of the right guy with that right background being able to give that proper experience. And so this is where a guy like Demetrius Maxey comes in. He's their special teams coordinator as well as the defensive assistant. And so he's been their D-line coach numerous times over the course of the years. He's not the D-line coach there, but he has a history. In 2024, he's the D-line coach of the Toronto Argonauts. Coach D-line for the Edmonton Elks / Edmonton Eskimos from 2018 through 2023. So I think if you're the Edmonton Elks, getting Demetrius Maxey involved with that D-line, because there's a lot of really good talent here on this Edmonton Elks D-line. It's just, to me, from everything I see here, Demetrius Maxey going to be kind of that, probably the biggest voice that will be able to help that D-line really develop where they need to be. J.C. Sherritt can work with the defensive schemes overall in coordination with Demetrius Maxey and generally work with those linebackers. So all in all, I think this is a guy that has a real potential. It's just the question of whether they are able to see it out fully.
Yeah, because on my sheet, I had Maxey as both the special teams and defensive line coach.
So he is their defensive assistant. At least this is how it's listed on their football operations website. But he has taught defensive line over in Toronto, as well as in Edmonton in the past, just 2018 to 2023. But I imagine that in that role as defensive assistant, he is involved with the D-line. So, all in all, is there anything else you got there, Rick, or shall we wrap this up? All right, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys leave a like on the video, share it around, and subscribe. And if you haven't already, make sure you guys join the Discord. Link in the description below to our Discord. We chat CFL, NHL, all sorts of sports stuff. So make sure you guys join the Discord below and keep the conversation going over there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Peace, love, and positivity, and we will see you guys next time.